Hey, everybody, welcome to the room where 50 people have walked into to have 50 conversations with strangers, with a stranger like myself. I have no idea who they are. I don't even know if they're going to show up. I was supposed to have a conversation earlier before this conversation with Bobby Berg this morning, and it was with somebody from the far, far east. And I don't know if we messed up the time zones. I don't know what happened, but got up. I was waiting here, and nobody showed up in the room. It was okay. It gave me a little time to just sit with myself and take some time to be with myself, which was very beautiful. But I always love when I show up here and somebody is actually here because I have no idea if they're going to be here, who they are, what they're going to say, what their stories are. Um, but rather than get too caught up in this whole thing, let me just share with you. This is the concept is two people walk into a room who have never had a conversation, who know nothing about each other, and sit down and see what happens. So with that, I can't introduce this person to you because I don't have any idea who he is. I can tell you his name. This is Bobby Berg. Bobby Berg, welcome to 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. It's a nice cloudy day outside. The sun's trying to peek through, and it's the perfect morning.
I love that. So tell us where you are, tell us who you are, and tell us what's important to you.
So I'm currently up in Anchorage, Alaska. Um, I am a musician for the United States Army,
Wow.
um, and I play clarinet, and been playing for the better part of 20 years at this point, if not a little bit more. Um, and what's important to me is being kind to one another.
Yeah.
Um, as a business venture that I've started is I'm a speaker for at-risk youth. So I essentially take students that schools have looked at and deemed to be not helpful or that they can't reach, or how to put it, a common phrase they use is the school to prison pipeline, where that's what the student is designated for. And
Uh,
I don't believe that. I don't believe that people are destined to just go from from a school to a prison. That doesn't, there's a lot that happens in the middle there
yeah.
that in my eyes, I'm going, wait a second. No person in the world wakes up and goes to school and then second they graduate, they're like, cool, prison. That's
That's
not how that works. There's a lot of things that happen. There's a lot of moments that this student experiences. There's a lot of trauma that this student experiences from point A to point B.
yeah.
So my job is to come in and be a mediator for the student and the school district and go, hey, how can we get this kid to where they need to be? How can we take them from being a problem, as you're deeming them, to becoming a leader in their community? Because if they become leaders, then their influence can spread.
Beautiful
And
work.
yeah, that's what I
Beautiful
do.
work. And it's really interesting that you frame it the way you're framing it because in the conversations that I've had around situations like that, it's often been the not going to school to prison pipeline that people are dropping out. Are you finding that people are graduating and still with graduation there's the pipeline to prison, or is it they go to school that doesn't quite work out, they get involved in whatever they get involved in, and then the destination is prison?
Truly, it depends on the student, and it depends on their level of hope that they have, not only in themselves, but in the system itself. Um, Mainly the kids that drop out early, yes, their chances of winding up in prison are significantly higher because there's no structure for them.
Yeah.
What winds up happening is with every student that I've worked with, I coach students one-on-one, especially in these at-risk areas. um, I do it for free because as much money as I could make, as successful of a business as I could have, what good is sitting on $400,000 a year when there's students that need help that can't get it because they can't afford my services?
Yeah,
That doesn't make any
100%.
sense in my head. So the kids that do get help, that decide to take that step and go, all right, I don't know this guy, but I guess I'll work with him. I guess. Um, the reason they drop out isn't because they don't like school. It's not because, I mean, all their friends are there. All of their learning opportunities are there. And the teachers that are going to guide them are there too. What they don't like is it's usually that one or two teachers that actively tell them, oh, you're not going to make it. This isn't going to work. You're wasting my time. And just give them that negative behavior that reinforces their negative bias. And all of a sudden the kid's like, I'm out, I'm done. This isn't worth it.
Yeah.
And if the kid drops out, it's rarely is it because they have a supportive system. It's because they're searching for that. And if they can't find it in school, they're just going to get it somewhere else.
Yeah. There's so much in what you're saying, and there's a part of me that wants to say, well, how can I help you get grants or funding for it? Because clearly the people you're working with cannot afford the work that you're doing, or to pay you for that time, or to pay you what you're worth for that time. And yet, I want to ask you if you feel like you're oversimplifying it. Is it because it feels like some of these kids just come in with 2, 3 strikes against them already? Their families are broken. Their fathers sometimes are gone. If their fathers are there, sometimes they're abusive, and sometimes the moms have to work really hard. I mean, I'm painting a classic scenario. It's not always that way, I understand, and I don't mean it to be the way I'm saying, but there's so much that feels almost broken before they even get to school, and school could be the one place for them where they could put the pieces together. But we're so quick to judge people from first impressions, and when someone comes in broken, you can feel the brokenness in them. And unless you have standout teachers, which most of the teachers don't have time to be, in my experience, then you just continue in the model of, this is a broken child who is going to nowhere but to prison. And so we can invest a little bit, but why would we invest too much? Why don't we try and find the 1 or 2 people in this classroom that's going to make it, and give them that? And the whole system, I guess what I'm saying, the whole system seems a little rigged against them. And so do you find that working through that system is the best way to do it? Or would it be smart to try and create another system that would take at-risk kids and not have to have them go through that school system, but create some sort of schooling system where at-risk kids could come together? I think of an image of a mosaic. It's made up of a lot of broken pieces, but the broken pieces come together to create something beautiful. You get what I'm saying? So
Yes, absolutely.
in the school system, they don't know how to deal with broken pieces that well. But perhaps it's possible through the work you're doing to create something where the broken pieces themselves could just come together and create something beautiful, a mosaic of sorts that would help each other see more than what they are. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And at this point, I don't see why not try it. I mean, we have decades of data on what happens when students are kind of cast aside, when they're not really given the help and support that they need, because all it takes is one person. It takes one teacher to go, hey, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you skip your lunch period today, and we'll go grab lunch and we can just talk about this. That's all it takes for one kid to go, oh my goodness, an adult cares about me.
Yeah.
Whoa. And it completely shifts their mentality.
Yeah.
But again, it takes one person to do that. But how many people do they pass in their life that don't do that? Totally. That go, this investment on this kid's not really worth it. I'm not going to see the return on it. Well, why do teachers go into teaching? To change lives, but you don't go in it to see the return on investment within, the 12 years you may see a student. It's the 10 years, it's the 20 years after where they come back and go, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm writing a manuscript up for my book now. And in it, as I was writing, I'm going, wow, I didn't realize how awful I was to my teachers. And I write an apology for every single one of them where I truly felt like I never gave you that apology because all you were doing was pushing me to be the best me that I could be. And I just couldn't see it because I was in 5th grade and didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't have the maturity to look at you and say, hey, I really don't like how you're pushing me, but I'm glad that you are taking that interest in me because someone is.
Yeah.
And with kids, they if you were to put all these kids in one school, it would be fantastic. It would be
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
at first, sure, but having that bond of we're all not fitting in the traditional system could do such wonders.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, and this is not the way I normally start these because, but it's just so interesting, and so I'm so intrigued by the concept because really the other part of the short narrative that you gave as to who you are is you said you play music for the army, is that what it is, or yeah,
Yes.
okay. And when I think about the military, I think they are that system in a lot of ways. The military takes people, especially now with their no draft. The military takes people that society doesn't have a way to know how to work with. I mean, not everybody, but there's a segment, and in the beautiful system, in the most beautiful system of the military, sometimes it doesn't work, but in the most beautiful system, it breaks a person down with the thought of rebuilding them back up, and it strips away all the stuff that they came in and said, okay, now that you're empty, we can fill you up again. And there's a lot of wisdom in that, and there's a lot of structure in that, and there's a lot of history that what they're doing works. And so it would seem like part of the marriage of the two things that you're involved in, the military and these at-risk kids, could create a really beautiful, almost like prep school for the military, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Where they wouldn't wait till you get to the military. They would start building them up and then let them come in and then bring them into the military already built up. It seems like a fabulous. Anyway, I get excited. It doesn't mean that I'm. Ah, tell me what makes you happy.
Makes me happy is watching others succeed at things that they don't think they can. That for me is one of my most selfish joys that I get to witness on a daily basis, and I love every second of it. Um, for example, Mike, I'm driving around an old 1997 Subaru Legacy, and the radiator just cracked. I'm not very mechanically inclined. I know the basics of a vehicle, but taking a large part out of it and replacing it for me is a little over my head.
Right.
And my cousin, for instance, has been working with machines and tools and vehicles his whole life. And I'll call him and go, Dan, man, I don't get this. Can you talk me through this? Like I thought I did this all right. I followed the YouTube video. I followed the diagram. It's not working. And he goes, oh, duh. Here, just do this real quick. Has no idea, exactly what's wrong. But he goes, oh yeah, here, just try this. I'm like 80% sure this will work. And the joy that I felt of succeeding once something got fixed, I was like, oh my gosh. I used to be a teacher, and that was always my favorite part was when a kid it was for music. So whenever a student wouldn't really understand what they're doing, and I'd be like, here, like for instance, on clarinet, it's hard to go from a B flat to a B. And it's for most people that aren't musician or musically inclined, that doesn't mean much. But imagine running your fastest speed that you can run, and then finding out that if you extend your legs about 2 inches, you extend your gait, you can run faster. That switch is huge. Once you realize you can do it.
Yeah.
Well, it could sometimes take students, a month to learn how to do this. And to kind of speed up the process, I would take their clarinet, the mouthpiece would be here, and I would turn it around so I would have the keyholes. And I would say, okay, close your eyes, and I want you to just blow. Don't worry about what I'm going to do. And I'd have the whole class quiet down and I'd say, everyone, just watch this. You're going to see something monumental. And I said, every single time there's a reason I tell you, I don't care when you say, oh, Mr. Berg, I can't do this. I said, you don't think you can do it. You don't believe you can do it, but I know you can do it because I've seen other people do it. And if someone else can do it, you can learn how. It's not going to be easy, but you can do it. Watch this. And everyone would get quiet and the student would start blowing in the instrument, and I would play a bunch of notes, and it would sound really cool because I can move my fingers about 30 times faster than they can. And all of a sudden I would have them go from that B flat to the B, and their eyes would open up and they'd be all excited, and I'd take the instrument out and they would just be beaming with joy. And I'd say, see, you didn't think you could do that, but you did.
Yeah.
It's those moments in people and seeing people's success that truly makes me happy.
Yeah. And those moments are in every aspect of life. The book that I wrote here, The Mosaic, is exactly that. It's about it's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So he sets out in search of the place called heaven. And the people he meets are not the standard bearers of who you would think would bring you to heaven. They're not the rabbis and the priests and the ministers and the swamis and the gurus and the shamans and the medicine men. It's the trash man and the street artist and the blind woman and the homeless guy. And he wonders, why am I meeting these people? And he thinks, okay, I'm here with them though. So why don't I just sit and listen to them tell me their stories? And Bobby, in every single case, when he spends a few minutes and listens to these people tell him who they are, what he realizes is the person he initially saw isn't at all who they are. It's who he thought they were. But when they show him who they are, he sees a totally different reality. And when it happens over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, he starts to say, I wonder if I see anything in the world the way it is, or if I only see the world the way I am. And at that moment, he looks to the right and he sees a monk unzipping the sky and inviting him through the hole in the sky into a parallel reality where he meets the wise one who's the keeper of the Mosaic. And so everything about what you're doing is similar to what the Mosaic is talking to me about, which is the heaven that he found was the perceptual shift of no longer seeing what we see, but seeing what actually is. No longer thinking you can't do it, but knowing that you can do it. And those shifts happen every single place in our life, and how beautiful it is that kids would have somebody like you to look up to share those shifts with them. Thank you again for the work you're doing. It's beautiful. Um, let's go to a lightning round if I can. I don't know if I can hear
Please.
you. Okay, there, I hear you. Good.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Let's go to the lightning round. Just quick questions. You can answer. You don't have to answer them fast. If you answer them fast, great. I jump in and out of it sometimes to see what's going on. First
Perfect.
couple are going to be pretty easy. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Both.
Both. Okay, cool. Coffee or tea?
It depends on the day. If I have to get something done that I really need to focus on, coffee, because it helps my ADHD settle down and I can focus. If not, absolutely tea.
Fabulous. Do you think you're somebody that is in the box or out of the box?
In the box.
Wow.
In the box. I just poke my head out every once in a while just to see what the view looks like.
I love that because I don't meet too many people that answer that in the box. So I'm going to want to ask you about that. And maybe we'll just jump out and ask you about it. How,
Yeah.
how does it feel to be a person that lives within the box and pokes his head out every once in a while to see what's going on? Tell me about that person.
It's very, very routine. I'm in the box because I understand that life works in a very specific way where there's no set stage, there's no set rules, but at the same time we have a very strict set of rules. And I go, okay, cool. So that's the outline of my box. Got it. As long as I like it, or as long as it really helps. If it doesn't, we'll poke my head out a little bit and say, if somebody yells at me, they yell at me. We'll figure that out later. But we'll try and stay as within the box as we can to keep everyone kind of on the, even keel. And then every once in a while, if I don't like it or it doesn't meet my objective mainly, then we'll say fine. Because if you look at, Alan Watts has this phenomenal segment in one of his lectures where he goes, if you go out into the woods, if you're feeling kind of anxious and you're feeling stuck, go take a walk in the woods and look around at what you see. You're usually walking on this path that's not perfectly straight, but it's kind of, where you're going. And then you look up and the trees are wiggly. They go all over the place. They're going left. They're going right. There's no straight lines generally. Yet we live in a world where everything is perfectly straight. Every every computer monitor is a perfect rectangle. Your house, your car, everything is designed to be straight, and the world isn't.
Yeah,
It's funny
I love
because
that.
then we look and we go, oh, well, everything has to be right. It has to be right in its place. And you go into nature and you go, I needed to because that's a way for me to control things. The world, on the other hand, nature doesn't abide by those same bylaws.
Yeah,
So for me, that's a lot of the box that I live in is okay. I'll follow your societal norms. I will stick with what is seen as okay for now. But if I really don't agree with this, then I'm going to poke my head out and say, nah. Let's expand our view because the reason we're in the box we're in is because we haven't looked at what's outside of it. And the
yeah,
second you look and you go, oh, wait, oh, I can think about this differently. Cool, let's do that.
yeah. I love that. Would you say, again, I'm going to do a preconceived notion that I
Yeah.
hope, I'm just going to share, and then we can blow it away, okay? Um, when I think about what you're doing in your life, when I think about that you've been in the military would tend to make me think that part of the way they break people down and build people up is by creating a very sort of safe box, a place where people can come safely and recreate themselves, and within that box, within those rules, within those regulations, there's a lot of freedom there. And so it would make sense that a military person, from my preconceived notions, would say, I'm an in the box person, right?
Yep.
And then I love that part of you that brings up Alan Watts, because my preconception of most of the people in the military is they're not big Alan Watts people, but that might be changing, and I love that, but that nature doesn't work within those boxes. I often say to my kids who are on their phones all the time or their computers playing computer games, like, when will you get out of the box? You live in a box, you look at a box, you work through a box, you talk into a box, you drive to school in a box, you go to a school is a box, your classrooms are boxes. Like, when are you going to just get outside and just play? And just be outside. We live close to the ocean. Go to the ocean. There's no boxes in the ocean. Like, just go and do it. And they do, to their credit, they do. But we live so boxed. Like, when I was in India, people don't live in boxes there. They do. I mean, some people do, but people live on the street. And you'll see people eating on the street, going to the bathroom on the street, making love on the street, sleeping on the street, dying on the street. And but in the United States, at least, and quote unquote civilized countries, right, we live behind the box, which makes people don't not really able to know us that much. What do you have to say about that?
I think it's a very fragile attempt at a safety mechanism to live in your box or to live out, behind your box because we get judged a lot on a daily basis. I do, you do, everyone does. And it's not out of anything vicious or malicious, but it happens. We all have our preconceived notions of other people and our preconceived biases, and they happen. But what a lot of people don't want to do is face those.
Yeah,
What a lot of people are afraid to do is find out more about themselves and why that bias is there. Um, and I think one of the most freeing things you can do is face it and admit to yourself, yes, I have this bias. It's not good, but I'm aware of it. I know the tendencies that I have, and I'm actively working to change it. When I was student teaching, I worked in a rural community where there were 2 Black students in the entire district, I think, and I made 3. I wasn't a student, but
right.
it was very difficult integrating myself into that community. It was
Yeah,
very difficult because of all the preconceived biases that these people had until I started talking.
yeah,
And they heard me and they're like, wait a second. I expected this kid to come in with a super thick accent from the inner city and to, sag his pants. And he's coming in this, this wonderful button-up dress shirt with a matching vest and a different colored what's it called, handkerchief in his pocket and the tie that matches. Wait a second, this is not what I expected at all. Hold on. And I had a whole conversation with the community about just very similar to this, where I said, let's talk.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to spend, 9 months here where everyone's kind of tiptoeing on eggshells because you're afraid to ask a question.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get mad. Let's have this conversation. And especially with the students, because they were the ones that were most open to it. And like during study hall, for instance, they come into the band hall, and because there's weren't enough seats in the cafeteria, and we would just talk. And I'd say, yeah, I understand that you think you know me. You don't know anything about me.
Yeah.
Let's break that. I don't know you. Let's really get to connect.
Love it. Love it. I love everything about the person that I'm getting to know right now. Because it really, like, you could be a spokesperson for the Mosaic and we've never had a conversation. But those are exactly the types of things that I do in whether it's in corporations or in businesses or whether it's in families. We hide so much behind these boxes of the pains that we've gone through, that really when we meet each other, we don't meet each other. My wall meets your wall, and we wonder why we don't have intimacy, right? And so I love the things that you're talking about and the things that you're saying. Um, and again, I just want to say thank you for doing it. What made you go that direction? Someone said to me, and the reason I ask it is, like, my mission is to listen to people. And somebody said, why did you create that as your mission? Did you feel that you weren't heard? And when it came down to it, I said, yeah, that's true. I think I felt like I lost my parents early. I didn't think people, as much as people tried to understand me, I don't think that they really could. I mean, they showed me a lot of love. They showed me a lot of consideration, but my friends had no idea what I was going through because they both had their parents. So I didn't really feel heard. And so this mission for me to listen to people who don't feel heard is a self-imposed mission, because I think it's something. Was that the way it was for you? Is the work that you're doing spring from the fact that it was something you wanted or didn't experience or did experience?
Yes, 100%. So my mom, when I was very young, dealt with drug addiction. To condense the story down, my great grandmother, my mom, and I had broken into our old house because we've been hopping from house to house, from school district to school district for I don't know how long, but it was a long time. Um, and my mom had said, "Hey, I need to go out and buy some paper towels. Can just wait here. I'll be back for dinner." I said, "Okay, cool." Well, a couple hours pass, and she hadn't come back. And she said that she bought the wrong paper towels. And even as a 5-year-old, I'm going, paper towels do the same thing.
Right.
Wait a second. Okay, she'll be back in a little bit. Well, a couple hours pass and she's not back. And my grandmother or my great grandmother says, "Hey, I'm hungry. Do we have any food?" And I go scouring through the house, and it's already been cleaned out because it was a rental. And there was a small box of Little Debbie's donut holes. And there were about 6 of them. And over the course of 5 days, I broke them up and made sure she ate, and we had a gallon of water, and I made sure she drank, and I made sure she was taken care of. And I completely disregarded my own safety, my own health, my own needs to make sure she was okay. And I remember laying on the ground looking at the ceiling for about 2 hours and kind of, I don't know if I met God, but I met someone that just, it almost felt like somebody was hugging me as I'm laying on the ground. And I said, okay, in a few hours, you're going to die because you haven't eaten, you haven't drank anything. You're going to die. It's okay. This happens. But this is, your job in this life was to really take care of people. And until your last minute, kid, you did. And of course, I didn't. I got up and ran over to my neighbor's house, even though my mom drilled into me not to. And I said, "Hey, can I use your phone?" This is back when we had landlines. And I called my grandfather and I said, "Hey, we're at the house. Can you bring us some food? I haven't eaten." and my grandmother got emergency custody of me, and here I am.
Wow.
And I think in that moment, I felt abandoned, like
Yeah.
true abandonment. Not my spouse hasn't paid attention to me for 2 days because they're playing Xbox, but true, literal. I need to go get my fix more than somebody needs to eat. My
Yeah.
child who has no way of taking care of themselves. And I think the reason I took this turn in my life was I don't ever want anybody to feel that way.
Yeah.
I didn't meet my father until a couple of years ago, and he was never there. He tried. I remember conversations where he would call my mom and say, I'm going to come visit, and then never would, or I'm going to send Bobby a gift and never would. And I think for me, what happened is I developed this wall of, I don't trust people anymore.
Yeah.
I don't trust people to take care of me. I don't trust people to make sure that my needs are met. So I do it myself. And I mean, to this day, it's still something I'm aggressively working through in therapy, because I don't want that anymore. I don't want people to feel like you get a version of me that I let you see, and then there's about 10 walls, and then there's the real me, and nobody sees that.
Yeah.
And in working with these students, I help them break their walls down. And I tell them every coaching session we have a morning accountability call. And I tell them, hey, if you're feeling like you put a couple of bricks back up last night in the middle of the night, it's okay, because I did too.
Yeah.
As much as you're taking your walls down, trust me, I am up there with a sledgehammer with you.
Yeah. No.
Because it's very difficult to be in this vulnerable position with initially a complete stranger and say, hey, I need to work through these traumas. And you're not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, so I can't afford one. So you're the best I got, kid. So Bobby, help me.
Yeah.
And it's awful to just pour your heart out to this coach, which is me, and feel that I'm not on that journey with you.
Yes.
As I tell them, I'll walk right beside you every single step of the way, but I can't pick that hammer up for you. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I want to. Trust me, I would love nothing more than to be able to take that wall down for you while you're sleeping, but I can't. You need to learn this level of perseverance. So the reason I took this turn was because one day I just said that's enough. That's enough of pretending to be this super happy, super energetic, super excited person, which I am naturally. But let everybody else see the side of you that isn't all of that. That side of you when you go home and you slam your door shut and you just break down because you've had too stressful of a day. Let everyone see that. Yeah. Because everyone's going through something similar.
Yeah.
So why would you hide that? It's not embarrassing. It's not seen as less than. It's human. Stop hiding from it.
Such a powerful statement you just made. And I want to invite those of you who are listening to just stop the recording right now, go back, rewind, and listen to it again. There are so many jewels in what Bobby just said. And there are so many of us that hide behind our walls. And we paint these pretty images on our walls, hoping people will believe our walls are us, but our walls aren't us. And taking down those walls, I want to invite you to ask yourself, how are you doing with the process of taking down your walls? How are you doing with showing up authentically? And one of the things that happens for me in this room is, look how beautiful this conversation is. I've known Bobby for all of about 18 minutes, right? And look at the depth of the conversation. Look at the vulnerability. Look at the sharing that's already happening in this conversation. When we just take the time to hold the space for another person to be able to tell us what they want to say and what they need, what they're trying to do in this world. And if anybody out there has the ability to help him do the work that he's doing, I want you to, where his information of how to contact them is going to be there. I want you to seriously think about, here's a man who's devoting his time free of charge to help a situation. And we all need funding. We all need support. If you have the wherewithal to help fund him, contact him and let him know. And get involved in what he's doing, because stranger things that have happened than this, that a stranger would talk to a stranger and another stranger might become a friend and help him, right? That would be beautiful. Again, for the fourth or fifth time, thank you for the work you're doing. I'm really touched by it. Back to the lightning round. um, both of these are important. You can say both if you want, but I would like you to choose one if you can. Do you think it's more important for you to have the platform where you can speak about what's important to you and share that with people? Or do you think it's more important for you to create the platform for other people to be able to speak into your platform what's important to them and listen to them?
I definitely think it's more important to create the platform. 100%.
Fabulous.
Being given up the platform to speak is fantastic. But there's, at least for me personally, there's a lot of chance involved in that, because now I'm waiting for that opportunity to show up. I'm waiting for someone else to create. I'm waiting. And in that period of waiting, I'm growing, sure. But imagine if instead of waiting, I just started working. Instead of trying to wait for this perfect grant, for this stimulus check, for this whatever, I just said, listen, cool, we're doing this. Like, I don't care, starting Sunday morning, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to start researching how to make this happen.
Love it. Love it. Do you feel like you fit into the world, or that you're different than from the world?
I very much feel like I fit in the world. I very much do. Um, Mainly because I feel like I fit in because I understand that I don't understand it. I'm well aware that there are so many people in this world that I will never meet, that I will never reach, that I will never really truly understand. And I know that. I know that I'm not going to know everything.
Yeah.
In college, I got really, really heavy into into Greek philosophy, and it that theme comes back over and over and over and over again of you don't know anything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a fragile attempt at control of trying to say, oh, I'm an expert at this, I know everything about it. No, you don't.
Yeah.
There's someone out in the middle of nowhere doing research on the exact topic that you're an expert on that's going to make a massive finding that is going to completely skew 30 years of research that you know about. So you don't know anything. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And that's the joy of life, is you get to constantly learn. You'll never know it all. But to be able to continuously learn outside of the classroom, mainly, I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And it's exciting because it keeps things fresh.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I realize how little I know rather than how much I know. And so it's fabulous. I love that. Would you say you operate from your head more or from your heart more?
From my heart, 100%.
Yeah.
My wife and I get into this very regularly, where she likes to have all the puzzle pieces and have the picture and understand exactly how to make it, whereas I will dump the puzzle piece or the box on the floor and say, cool, let's just start, and just start grabbing pieces and seeing if they fit, and not making the regular border like everyone else does. I'll just go.
Right.
And I find that there's a place and there's a time and place to think from your head. There very much is, because when I haven't, it's gotten me in a lot of trouble. But also, when you think from your heart, for me, it's much more important to feel fulfilled in your life than it is to make sure you hit all the right marks.
Yeah.
I would rather have you, like, when we do this, when we're at the rifle range, and I'm helping coach someone, I'll tell them, I would much rather, there's 40 targets you can hit in total. I would much rather you hit 10 of them, but understand one big flaw in your shooting, than to hit 39 of them and still not understand where the problem is.
Yeah. Fabulous. Fabulous. Um, would you say you're a leader or a follower?
It varies. Um, my therapist and I have been talking about this extensively lately, because I've been having a lot of struggle with it in my work life. There's a very big stopgap in upward progression in my field, and I have the knowledge to be a leader. I naturally lead in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
Until I realize this person that you're trying to outlead might have a little bit more knowledge base on this, and they might be able to teach you something. So learn to be a follower in this. naturally, I want to be a leader. I want to control my own life. I want to control everything because at a time in my life, I had no control and almost died because of it. So subconsciously now, if I don't control something, I'm afraid that it's going to kill me.
Yeah.
I know those two don't correlate, but that's
No,
how it
but
happens. And in learning to be a follower, I very much am finding more peace because I'm going, you don't have to control everything. And most importantly, it's the military. You don't control anything unless you're at the top. And even then, everybody has a boss.
yeah.
So you need to learn to follow. And you need to learn to enjoy following. So it's very situational, very much so.
I love your distinctions. And I want to ask a caveat on it because no matter who I ask, I still ask this caveat. We live in a very siloed world right now where we are a part of one group and not a part of another group. The easiest place to see that is politically what's happening in our country, right? Where Republic, and I don't care what side you're on, both sides operate the same way.
Of course.
They're the pro-Trump people and the anti-Trump people, and the pro-Trump people can't break out of the thought that everything he does is good, or they don't want to stand against him and say anything he does is bad. The anti-Trump group can't see anything that he does is good and just can't break out of the group that says he doesn't do anything good. Both of those are so wrong because he's done some great things and he's done some stupid things, and for Democrats not to be able to see the great things that he's done and just constantly bash him. We all know what it's like. If we get bashed all the time, we're going to stand up and we're not going to listen to it. We're going to say, but I did something good, you know. Like if you think about coronavirus, but I stopped people coming in January 30th. You know, it's not that I didn't do anything good. If they could just say, hey, that was fabulous that you did that. What happened between January 30th and April 1st? That's the question we're looking at, right? But nobody gives the dog a bone one way or the other. Do you know what I mean? And so when I look at that, I think the people that we look to as our leaders have really just become followers. And not nobody, because there are people that are doing it, but there's a dearth of leadership in even the leaders that we look at to lead us, because we don't have the courage to stand out of our side of our silo and say, gosh, this is a great way to believe. We're doing great things, but these things are really messed up and we have to change them. What do you think about that?
I think that going back to our do you live in the box or outside of the box conversation, people get comfortable naturally. If you remove the incentive for someone to move forward, they won't. If I stop telling one of my students, hey, I want this assignment done. I know your teacher says it's due Friday in 2 weeks. I want it done by this week so we can edit next week. If I don't tell them to do it, when do you think they're going to do the paper?
Yeah. If they do it, they're going to do it the night before.
Exactly. Why? Because that's how people are. Because we want time, which is our most valuable asset, to ourselves. You don't want to spend that time on that paper until you realize, oh, if I get this paper done, I have more time to completely have to myself. Awesome. And when you put people in leadership positions, if you don't give them that incentive to move forward, and not necessarily to say to get promoted or to get to the next tier or what have you, if you don't give them that next motive to break out of the box that they've built themselves in, or at least poke their head out, they won't. Yeah. And the reason everyone becomes followers is because in politics, if you upset the wrong person, not even politics, this is in any situation. This is in family, this is in work, this is in school, this is life. If the person that you see as the boss, if you don't listen to them or you kind of rub shoulders with them a little bit and say, hey, I don't really like this. Well, now you're not in the box. You get shunned and you get kicked out of the box. Yeah. Well, when it comes to politics, if you get put out of the box, you're not getting reelected.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen multiple times where somebody will say something on Twitter and all of a sudden, come election season, they're gone.
Yep.
Or their chances are significantly diminished because they spoke out about something and they didn't just put their feet in line and just keep walking forward like everyone else. But isn't the point of politics to challenge ideals?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
thought we elected you to use your voice and your platform that we gave you to challenge the ideals that are already put in place, and not to challenge every single one of them,
Yeah.
but just a couple of them that we all look and scratch our head and go, wait a second, really? That's the law?
Yeah.
Did we change this?
Yeah.
I think that it's a very, it's a sense of complacency because they have this job that they're comfortable in, that they know they have pretty solid, and they don't really want to challenge their ideals. They don't want to put any of that extra work in. I'm sure
Yeah.
they do extremely difficult work. I'm not taking that away from any
100%.
person that works in the government. But what I am saying is the human condition hasn't really changed based on your job. If I don't have to put any extra work in and there's no incentive, why would I put the extra work in?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
And yet it's and I really understand what you're saying. And our world is changing, and our world is needing new solutions to problems that should no longer be here anymore. And by staying sometimes in our boxes, and I love having this conversation because you are an in the box person with your head picking out, right? And there's nothing about me that's in a box. So I love that we can have this conversation and just love and respect each other for the positions that we have. When I look at the world, we can't use in the box solutions right now because those in box solutions are not working for us. We need to somehow merge boxes and come together as a United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's
That is not the boxed world that we're living in right now, at least from my perspective. And so how does how would you recommend that people who live in their box open their box up to new ideas, new people, new thoughts? I mean, you said you peek your head out, but is that going to be enough to make the change? I would just want to put my vote in for you to say it's people like you that I think need to start leading this country, not and leading in the world. And I understand the desire to be in the box and follow and to learn. But you don't have to be the best leader. You just have to be a leader that has the courage to stand up for what's right and let what's right be the best thing. And to listen to what people want and listen to what's right, not to tell people what's right. Does that make sense to you?
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's time for, like, how would we know this about each other, and how would we be able to have this conversation if we didn't come into a room and just put aside all the thoughts that we think we have about who this person could be and who this person could be, and just share together, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of this. Um, do you think people are more alike than they are different, or more different than they are alike?
Oh, I 100% think people are way more alike than they can even fathom.
Yeah.
Um, I although I work with at-risk students, the diversity of students that I work with is not when I meet with a school district and I say, "Hey, I work with at-risk kids," I'll ask them, I'll shut the door, take your administrator hat off, and let's honestly answer this. Who do you think I'm talking about
Yeah.
when I say at-risk kids? Give me your preconceived notion of what an at-risk kid is, and they're always wrong.
Yeah.
Every single time. I have yet to have an administrator go, yeah, well, it's Jamar over there who, comes into class when he feels like it. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm not judging. Tell me what you think. Let's write this down.
Yeah.
And then I'll explain to them what the students I work with are. And they're not just from the Black demographic. They're not just from the Hispanic demographic. They're from all races and all creeds and all political, socioeconomic statuses.
Yeah.
Yes, they're at-risk kids, but at-risk doesn't just mean financially.
Yeah.
And what these administrators find by the end of our, half-hour meeting is they're just people. They're just people.
Yeah.
And we all want the same thing at the end of the day. And what's that? To live a fulfilled life in whatever that means for you. That's all we want.
When I finished writing the Mosaic, I told you it's this Mo, the main character, goes out and talks to all these people in the search for heaven, and the perspective shifts that they give him are the things that actually make him see heaven, because he sees the world differently. And when you see the world differently, the world you see becomes different, which is really interesting. Um, so the book actually spoke to me and said, "We want you to go out on a trip. We want you to do what Mo did. We want you to go and sit on street corners and go in government offices and go in schools and go in hospitals and prisons and homeless shelters. And we want you to just listen to people, talk to people that nobody talks to, and listen to people nobody listens to." And at first, I had a preconceived notion of who those people were as myself. And I was sitting here doing my work, and my wife came in the room and she said something to me, and I sort of just, yeah, that'd be a great idea. And she looked at me and she said, "You didn't hear a word I said, did you?" And I said, "No, the truth of the matter is I did." And so she said, "So here's the great listener who doesn't even hear me." And I realized that the people that don't feel heard are not just the minorities and the poor and the downtrodden. The CEO, when I talked to him in his company and said, "Do you feel that you're heard?" He says, "God, no, I can't say what I really believe, because it's lonely at the top. If I tell people what I really believe, they won't do what I need them to do." The employees in the company, I say to them, "Do you feel heard?" They said, "God, no, we can't say what we do, because if we break ranks, then people will use it against us and push us down, and we'll never go up." The kids in the school say the same thing. They say, if I don't try and become a square peg, the only holes that in the board that they're trying to put us in are square holes. And so if I'm a round peg, I won't make it in the world. And so everywhere I turned, I saw people that were not able to say what they believe. And consequently, what I tried, that's what I'm doing here, is sitting and saying, let's enter into this room in this time where we can't even see each other, hold each other, shake hands, hug each other, do whatever we need to do. Let's spend the time to just get to know each other a little bit. Do you believe that not only people speak to us, but situations speak to us? Do you believe the environment speaks to us? Do you believe our bodies speak to us? Do you believe our workplaces speak to us?
I do, to all of it.
Yeah,
I do. I think that the world is too random. There's too many variables to just go through this life all on chance. There's too much. There's far too many variables. There's billions of variables that can happen in a single day for everything to just happen.
yeah,
And I truly don't find that the universe is that lazy. Not to quote Sherlock, but
right,
really, I don't think the universe is that lazy to let chance happen that often.
yeah,
And I think that the universe does speak to us. I think that your workplace speaks a lot about you and what you value. I think that your family speaks a lot about what you value. I think that how you hold yourself, and I just mean physically, how you hold yourself, speaks a lot about how you think about yourself.
yeah,
And I think that everything that you interact with in the world talks to you.
fabulous.
I think the way that your room looks, like right now, you can't see it, but my room is a disaster because my wife has been very depressed for the past few weeks, and I have consequently become as well. And my room, that's not to say that my room is normally clean. It's not. But it's even to the point where I'm going, dude, this is messy.
Yeah,
And the room didn't say anything.
yeah,
But thing after article of clothing, after plate, after this started piling up. And I'm going, you open this room and you walk inside, and what does it say? It says I'm hurting.
yes,
So why
yeah,
don't we clean the room up?
yeah,
Let's just start cleaning the room, and all of a sudden maybe you'll feel just a little bit more at peace. Just a little bit. We're not asking for much.
yeah.
But yes, I very much do believe that everything speaks to us and speaks about us.
Thank you again for your honesty and your vulnerability and just sharing how real you are. I so appreciate it. What do you think the world's trying to say to us?
The world is trying to say to us that we've spent enough time in separate parties. And I'm not talking political parties. I think the world is trying to tell us that we have spent enough time looking at me as me and you as you, and you are superior and I am less, or I am superior and you are less. And I think what it's trying to finally show us for the millionth time in the history of the world, that just because we're in two different spots doesn't mean that we can't walk the same path.
Yeah.
I think what it's trying to really say is the reason we're where we're at, be it good, bad, or indifferent, is because we're trying to do this all on our own. The United States is trying to fight the coronavirus on its own. China is trying to do it on its own. India is. South Africa is. Everywhere is trying to do this on their own. And although people are discussing things and discussing their findings, we're not coming together as a team and going, listen, we're going to sit in this room for a month. And by the end of this month, we're going to have something because we have the most brilliant minds we could think of.
Yep.
All working together. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what you believe. We need to fix this problem because if we don't, people are going to die, and that's not good.
Yeah.
Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
And I think we need to come together. That's it.
I love that because, and like, what would happen if we actually created global strategies to the things that are global problems, and we just joined together, Mosaic, all the pieces came together to create this beautiful artwork. What do you think the world is trying to say to you personally?
I think the world is trying to say to me, find your patience because the payoff is going to be worth it. Most recently, I was asked to come out and be a keynote speaker, which I was thrilled about. Absolutely thrilled. Because the gig's not happening, now I can say this. It was a $10,000 speaking fee with room and with the hotel, food, flight, everything included on top of the $10,000 speaking fee,
Right.
which that's more money than I ever dreamed I could have made, ever.
Yeah.
And it fell through.
But it fell through because of the virus, right? Because not
partially. So it was initially supposed to happen last October. Well, I had a work conflict that I couldn't miss. So I said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't make it." They said, "Okay, well, we'll find another speaker. No big deal." They wound up canceling the event, and then we're going to move it to April. Well, then coronavirus happened and completely ruined that. Well,
hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have a developmentally delayed daughter, and we call each other at 10 o'clock every morning. And I didn't realize we were going to go long. We went longer than I thought, but it's okay. I want to finish this
Not a
up.
problem. Not a problem.
So we have about 5 minutes. So let's close up in
Perfect.
5 minutes.
Perfect.
Maybe we don't. Okay. Let's try again. So do you remember where you were?
Yes.
Catch up.
So I got very frustrated because that $10,000 event would have been massive for both my family and myself and my business. And for a while, I got really frustrated. And all of a sudden, when I said, okay, but if you didn't have the gig, you didn't have it. Let it go. Another will come. Let it go.
Yeah.
And the second I actually took the time to let it go here and here, all of a sudden I started getting more students to coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like within the day, I went from having maybe 2 or 3 to having 10, then 11, and it just kept growing and growing. And now I'm going, okay, world, you win. I'm listening now.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
So I just get things as people speak to me. I get feelings. One of the things I think you should start to prepare for yourself is a TED Talk, because I think the work that you're doing and the knowledge that you're getting from working with kids like this is very TED Talk driven, and I think you should try and create that, which will then help you build your speaking career also. Um, let's wind down with one final thing. You've said a lot and you've shared. Bobby, thank you so much for all you shared. What what if you could say one thing, boil it down to one thing, what would you like to share with the world in this moment? And make sure you come to your microphone.
Don't be so afraid to open your arms and bring somebody in for a cup of tea, because you'll never know what they're going through, and you'll never know how important that moment was for that person.
Yeah. I love that. And if you listen to any of the podcasts that I do or talks that I do, you know that one of the people that I most value in my life, I've had the opportunity to be with the richest people in the world and the poorest people in the world, to sit in their dining room tables, in their living rooms, and on their cardboard boxes. And both of them have given me the honor to share my point of view and to give me their point of view. And one of the people that's touched me the most is a homeless man that I met in San Diego. And I sat with him, and it took about 40 minutes to get through his, don't, this is my spot, don't take my thing, and I told him, I'm not going to take anything from you. I just want to talk to you. And as I talked to him, I said, what is the one thing that you, hold on one second. I got to really go. What is the one thing that you would really like to tell all these people that pass by you? And he said, if people would only take 10 minutes out of the course of their life and just go up to someone they don't know and ask them how they're doing and just listen to them. Don't try and fix them. Don't try and change them. Don't try and help them. Don't try and do anything for them. Just sit there and listen. And I said to him, Corey, why is that so important to you? And he said, Danny, about 3 months ago, I had a terrible day. Being a homeless person is not an easy job. People do all sorts of nasty things to you. They treat you as a thing, not as a person. And people will punch you and kick you and yell obscenities to you. They'll take your money. They'll sometimes people even defecate on me or urinate on me. I mean, it's just terrible. And in this one day, all of that happened on the same day. And I thought to myself, what am I doing here? It's not, this isn't the life that I want to lead. And it's not, and I'm pissing people off. So I made a decision that evening when it got dark, I was going to go around the corner to a dark street and I was going to just take my life. And 2 minutes after I said that, a man came up and put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, how are you doing, brother? And Corey told me tears started to come from his eyes. And he said, not that well, my friend, I'm sorry. And the man, instead of leaving, just held him in his arms and sat down with him and said, I'm here, talk to me. He didn't want anything from him. He didn't try and change him. He just listened to him. And Corey said to me, Danny, you know what? It took only about 10 minutes. But when I realized after I had just spoke to him and just shared and dumped on this guy, that somebody who was important stopped to spend 10 minutes with me and just listen. I couldn't take my life anymore. And he said, I've never seen that man again, and I wish I had, because I wanted to tell him that that day he saved my life. Well, I've never been able to see Corey again either. But I wish I could tell Corey that every talk that I do, every conference that I go to, every boardroom that I enter, every talk that I give, I tell Corey's story. And I invite people to take 10 minutes out of the course of their life to just sit with somebody they don't know and ask them how they're doing. It's not unlike what you do. And now it seems like I have to take 10 minutes and be with my daughter. But
Yes.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you've done, for all that you continue to do. And please, let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
If there's a way, when I come on my trip and I come up to Alaska, I want to see you.
Yes.
I want to go to be with you with the kids you work with. I want to do whatever we can do together to figure out how we can do whatever we do together. What an honor to meet somebody like yourself. And thank you for taking the risk to be with me on these conversations. It shows the beauty and the power of them. This is the beginning, not the end, hopefully, of the conversations we have together, my friend.
100%.
Okay. Thank you again. And to those of you who listen and come to these calls, pardon my interruption of my daughter calling. It's our 10 o'clock ritual every day that we, because I can't see her because she's in a group home in coronavirus land, we get to see each other 10 o'clock every day. And we're 10:07 now, so I got to go. Okay. Big love to you, my friend. Thank you again for you. Thank you for those of you who listen. And for those of you who listen, share these conversations with your friends. If you have people that you know who want to have conversations, invite them to get in touch with me, and let's continue it. And what would be so bad if you yourself started to have a conversation with people you didn't know? I also, stranger things have happened than strangers becoming friends. Don't be strangers, be friends. Until next time, thank you very much. Ciao.